Hi there, I'm Ryan from the Center for Urban Farming here in Trondheim, Norway, and today I'm with one of our neighbors.
Hello, I am Victoria. So now we are in my garden in Moholt, Trondheim, and we are starting a new project to transform this garden into a veggies garden. So the problem is we were just facing a huge square full of grass and we didn't know where to start, how to do it. So we decided to get some help from Ryan.
Yeah, and this is quite typical. A lot of us start a garden in a place that's never had a garden before, and most likely that's going to be in grass. So today's video is going to teach you how to change a lawn into a garden. Okay, so before we get started, I need to talk about a really important thing. There's a common misunderstanding that somehow the soil in your backyard or your front yard is worthless and that you need to start all over and bring in new soil. Most of the time, the soil in your backyard is probably pretty good, or it has some things that it can give you, and it's just a waste of time and a waste of resources to bring in a bunch of extra soil when you have something right here that you can start with. This stuff is amazing. I mean, we've only been digging in it just a little bit this morning and we found all kinds of life. There's a worm right there, and you can tell by just looking at it and smelling it that there's life in this soil, and this is a really valuable resource. So I'm a huge advocate that you should start with what you have. Whatever soil you have, you should start with that, and we can build that soil up over time. We can bring in compost, you can grow things in your soil that actually improve the quality of your soil. Basically everywhere in Trondheim, we do have one species of grass that's really difficult to handle, and you'll have to excuse my Norwegian, but it's pronounced something along the lines of kveka. Kveka? Quite amazing plant, and it's sort of a testament to the power and perseverance of life that should really humble us and give us all hope. But the challenge with this grass that we deal with is this is perennial rhizomatous grass, or it's perennial in Norwegian is flerårig. And the problem with it is it lives forever, basically, unless you can kill it. And it sends out these roots laterally in all kinds of directions, and then it sends up its blad from those, and it spreads and it lives forever. And so even a little piece like this left in your soil is going to try to sprout and to build more roots and to build a bigger mat. And so that's something that you're going to have to deal with here if you're going to garden. So there's a number of approaches that you can use to manage this stuff, but one of my favorites and most effective is a practice called scalping. And what we do is, it's nice if you have a good sharp shovel like this, works pretty well. You can also use a shovel like this if this is all you have, but this one with this flat blade works really nicely for this. And essentially all we're doing is we're going to come in really low, like a really low angle, so like down here, and we're just going to hit the soil like this, and we're going to try to scalp these pieces off. And what I get are these chunks, these mats like this, okay? Now the shame about doing this, the real sad thing, is that you end up with a lot of soil, and usually your best soil, because nature tends to build soil from the top down, right? Like in the forest, leaves fall on the ground, those things decompose and they turn into soil. So the soil over time builds up and up and up. I've actually suggested before that the history of life on Earth is really one of soil building. When we look around at this planet that was once rock and ice and fire and now has meadows and valleys, that is a result of soil building over time. One thing is you can just break this stuff up. You can chop it a little bit, try to get it out, bang this material against the shovel. And then what I would recommend is not throwing this stuff away, but putting it in a receptacle, like putting it in a bag like this. And when you're all done, you can tie these up. You can also use a trash can. You can tie these up and put them somewhere. But if you put these in here for most of the summer, if we ever get any sun, it'll cook them, it'll kill them, and what you'll end up with is, you know, it will be some good organic matter. There's really no point in exporting this out of your yard. This is another resource that you have. Another really good strategy to managing this Quebeca grass, this perennial grass, is to consider that this grass likes to creep in. So a lot of people start gardens and they'll put like maybe 4 or 5 pallets out or little patches this big. And that's fine, but the challenge is that now this Quebeca, if you haven't prevented it, it's gonna be coming in from all of these different angles, right? It's gonna be attacking the whole side. And then if you've got another pallet over here, it's gonna be trying to attack there. So I really like what Victoria's done out here, which is she's taken a big area and she's cleared a big area away, right? Because now we only have the Quebeca coming in from the outside, which means it'll be a lot easier to keep this area clear of this really aggressive perennial grass. All right, so once we have our garden scalped, we've got rid of most or all of that Quebeca grass, this fibrous grass here. Next thing I like to do is to begin the process of what is called double digging, okay? This is kind of a modified double digging. Garden vegetables like to have deep soils, they like to have loose soils, they want to be able to spread down far and out, they want to access water and they want to access nutrients, and we're trying to create a really, really rich bed for them. Vegetables tend to be some of the more demanding crops that we grow. They need a lot of good nutrients and a lot of good water and oxygen in that soil to help stimulate the biology that supports the plants. So this method of double digging is a really good system to quickly get some deep, loose soil. So what we do is we start, you kind of started here, we dig like a little trench, and I'm just gonna pile this dirt up here, okay? And I'm gonna keep digging this trench all the way across my bed. All right, so once I have my trench dug here, now I have this chance to actually open up the subsoil, to actually create more drainage, more depth, get some oxygen down into the deep parts of the soil, and we have a chance to make a nice deep garden bed. And all I do to do this is the double part of the double digging, is I just stab the shovel in the ground and I just loosen it and I work myself backwards here. Now, double digging is a lot of work. You can see I'm like actually kind of out of breath here. That's pathetic. It's a lot of work, and it's not something that I think is necessarily worth doing every year. It's something that's good to do maybe the first year, or if you notice when you're digging in your garden that your shovel is only going in a little bit, that means you have some pretty heavy compacted subsoils, and maybe a double digging would be a good way to improve the soil in your garden. And when you improve the soil in your garden, you're really improving the health of the plants that you grow there and their productivity. And then, yeah, we come right back to it here, and we just go ahead and we shift over. Now we're digging our second trench here. So, a quick word on rocks in the garden. A lot of people obsess about getting rocks out. The only bad thing about rocks in the garden is if they get in your way, right? When I'm digging, it's hard to work around. So a rock like this, I would probably remove, use to build a fireplace, or we can put it on the side here to prevent some of that soil erosion. That's a big rock, but we have a lot of little rocks in the garden. And these rocks, there's nothing wrong with these in the soil. They do actually a couple of really good things. These rocks actually help to increase the drainage of the soil, so get some of the extra water out of the soil. Remember from my first video that we're not generally growing water plants, we're growing terrestrial plants that need air. So a lot of times in this wet Trondheim climate, getting water away from the bed is really important. There's also loads of minerals in these rocks, micronutrients that plants need. So rocks are not really the enemy of your garden. They just can sometimes, when they start to get this big or so, they get in the way of a shovel. And that's really the only reason to get rid of those things.
To demonstrate the next part. Yeah, compost, a little bit of raking.
And open, I mean, this is the kind of soil that vegetables love to grow in. And the reason why is because we've just put a lot of oxygen into this soil, we've opened it up, and when you do that, that oxygen activates all the microbiology in the soil, and it actually is like blowing air or oxygen on a fire. All of this organic matter, there's nutrients in all this organic matter, and when we open the soil up, we kind of light that organic matter on fire, and that gives a big release of nutrients. Okay, that sounds awesome, and it is for our high demanding vegetable crops. The downside of this process is when we ignite that biology in the soil, we actually end up burning up our nutrients. They volatilize into the atmosphere, so we lose nutrients. So there's something that's really important in vegetable gardening or any kind of gardening, is that we're always managing the nutrients in our soil kind of like it's a bank account, right? You've got money in the bank right now, and you're gonna spend some of it when you till. When you open the soil up, you're burning up some of your money on that, some of your nutrients. And when your crops are in there, they're gonna be taking some of that money out of the soil, some of those nutrients out of the soil. So you've gotta find a way to bring it back. Traditionally, there's really two main ways that that's done. One is by rest, and I don't just mean doing nothing, but people grow like grøngjøtsel would be the Norwegian word. It's like a crop that we plant, not to harvest food for ourselves, but to just feed the earth. So a lot of times people will grow erter or other kinds of grass, like big works really well, to try to bring carbon and nitrogen back into the soil. Another great option is actually to use manure, or even better than manure is compost here. This is some compost from Volgor. Get in touch with us at the Center for Urban Farming, or give us a call and come pick up some compost for your garden. It's really the kind of the one thing that you should be adding to your garden. So how do we do that? So we've got this nice loose soil here, right? We've been double digging all this stuff. Look at, we've got worms that are flying already. And this is why I say, use the soil in your yard. This stuff's great. It's already got a lot going for it. Just take a nice shovel full here. And again, since this is the first year we're growing in this, I'm gonna go ahead and put down a pretty fat dose on top of the soil here. I'm shooting for about, I'd say about 4 centimeters on top of the surface. Once you get the soil built up and things are growing well in it, in the future you can just put down a centimeter or 2. But I think the first year or 2, it's good to put down a lot. Now, if you leave this on the surface like I just did, and we get sun and we get wind, you are essentially just kind of killing the nutrient that exists in this stuff. So I strongly recommend that you get it integrated into the soil a little bit. There's no point in burying this stuff deep in the ground. What we really want to do is just get it mixed in. Work really well. Just try to kind of chop it in like this, just nice and shallow. You're not going more than 6 or 10 centimeters down. Go ahead and just chop that compost in there, and that's going to really help to protect it, so you're not going to lose all that good nutrient that exists in there. I mean, it'd be pretty tempting if the weather was a little bit better and looked better this week. It'd be pretty tempting to stick a cabbage, a cole plant right in here right now. And you might have some good luck with that.